Those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
Hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Monday episode of Running Point on ysnlive.com. Last Monday before Thanksgiving. Anthony Hartwig with you. Alongside Ty Bartell. And man, was it a fun weekend. Playoffs, regional final action, basketball gets started. We're going to recap it all here today. And first, Ty, I guess the first thing we have to say is, how many teams do we have in state?
It's like we went to
Four.
it's like we're pulling up to Wendy's at 1 a.m. We're getting the 4-for-4 deal right now as we got all four of our teams going to state. And I mean, we saw that throughout the nights too. Friday night, both teams from Canfield reigned supreme with both the Cardinals and South Range. And it was both kind of similar storylines where both teams couldn't get over that hump of the regional final in the last few years. But that trilogy, like we kind of talked about, the trilogy worked for the Cardinals. They got over Chardon and South Range with the big boulder of Kirtland, not really much in the way. South Range became the big boulder in the region. They took out Perry in convincing fashion, and both teams advanced. And then we go right into Saturday. And JFK, first and foremost, what a thriller that was, too. Talk about the guts of Coach Prologo, too, to just say, you know what, we're going for two.
You've done it before.
Yeah.
It's the exact same score. Well, we'll talk about this later when we get to the actual game breakdown. But it was the exact same score as the Garfield JFK game.
Yeah.
And it came down to the exact same thing. Late score, and JFK just says, to hell with the tie. We're going for two. And they get it.
You know what? That's what championship caliber teams are able to do, man. They're willing to risk it for the biscuit. They risked it, and they got a pretty big biscuit.
That's so gutsy, because that's one of those decisions that if it doesn't go your way, it's gonna be talked about, and if it goes your way, it's gonna be talked about. So, if it didn't go their way, there'd be a lot of people in JFK like scratching their heads, like, why wouldn't you just go for the? And it's funny because the discussion of that decision drastically changes based on the result, right? So it's not the decision; it's just the result of the decision. Because if he didn't make it, people would be saying, man, why are you doing that? That's overly aggressive. But he made it, so people are saying, oh, he's a genius. That's gutsy. That shows moxie. It's funny how sports does that. We're like, it's not really the decision we're judging. It's really the outcome of the decision.
Talk about just execution of players, though, from the O-line throughout. And I mean, Michael Morrow, as Mike Ackelson said too in the call, you want to talk about again that not Michael Morrow, excuse me, Caleb Hadley. I just literally saw Michael Morrow share something for JFK. So no, Caleb Hadley too. You talk about someone, Mike Ackelson talked about how the legs didn't stop churning too. And I mean, that's just the whole line was pushing forward throughout. And it was just incredible to see the well execution on that. We need 2 yards. We're going to get 2 yards. We're going to win the football game.
JFK shared an end zone view, like behind the goal line, and it took 2 or 3 seconds before there was a signal. It was probably the longest 2 to 3 seconds in JFK football history, waiting for that signal to be, finally given that it was a touchdown.
And you know what? Another trip to the Final Four. We talk about too oftentimes like the boulders that stand in the way.
Well,
You
this is
get
the
to the
boulder.
Final Four, you are the boulder now. Now
Right.
there's just 4 boulders that are just thrown at each other, and the biggest one survives, right? The one that doesn't break survives now at this point.
This will be a rematch of last year's game with Newark Catholic. Last year they played it in a snowstorm. We'll look at what the forecast looks like for next Saturday. Let's see. Now it says 40% chance of rain, but 46 is the high, so it should be warm enough to not turn that rain into snow right now, according to Storm Tracker 21. That's a long way off. The forecast can change. You don't know, but hopefully not a blizzard this week in that JFK Newark game, because that affected everything. And obviously the Green Wave came away with the win last year, and now JFK. Man, this season has been all about getting monkeys off your back, right? Regular season, we saw plenty of teams that had struggled against this program or this program, and finally just kind of get it off. And now JFK has another opportunity to continue that storyline this season.
Since we're going right into the previews, we might as well just stick with JFK and we'll go with all.
Let's just keep recapping this JFK game.
We talk about the regular season, and you hit the nail on the head with Garrettsville Garfield. It was literally like getting that monkey off their back, because the year prior, you remember, Garrettsville Garfield took it to JFK pretty well. They got a pretty solid win against JFK the year prior, and JFK knew they wanted to come into this year. They wanted to get that monkey off their back, and they were able to do so. And I feel like that experience paired with all those other like experiences throughout the season have culminated into JFK being prepared for that kind of moment. Credit Danville too, because I thought JFK going into that, I thought heavy favorites for JFK, but Danville was gutsy. They put out a fantastic performance defensively. I think offensively sustained some pretty solid drives against a very good JFK defense. I think Danville put up a hell of a game plan. It just so happened that JFK had the ball with time on their side and a chance to make that kind of decision.
I was just so fascinated that it came down to the exact same moment and the exact same score as that Garfield game earlier in the season. Like, how many times? 22-21 is a very odd football score. It doesn't happen often. 22 is a hard score to get in football. So how many times does the team have 22-21 twice in a season? That'd be like hard diving into the analytics, but still, like 22-21 doesn't pop up as a score too often in football. So the fact that it came down to the exact same score in the exact same situation made me ask if that didn't go their way against Garfield, would the same thing happen? Or do you think that Garfield game gave them confidence to say, we've been here before, we've had this situation before, we went for 2, it worked, we know we can do it, let's go for 2 again? Do you think if it didn't go their way in Garfield, do you think they have the same mindset on that play to go for 2?
It's definitely in the back of your mind, right? It's in your subconscious somewhere, like, all right, we've ran something similar to this position against a team, and it didn't work out too well for us. We lost a game. But, I mean, that's where confidence plays a huge factor in sports, and that's what JFK has been playing with this whole season, is a ton of confidence. And I mean, the confidence that they had allowed them to make that play against the G-Men. It allowed them to do it against Danville once again. And I mean, that's just what JFK has been playing with. That's what Coach Prologo plays with. And whether it's a win or a loss, that team's confident that they can go out there and beat any team that they face.
And that question gets me to this point. Every situation in the regular season can matter, because you never know when a similar situation might pop up in a much bigger game with a lot more on the line. So, when you're going through the regular season, whether you're a football player, basketball, soccer, it doesn't matter. Take every situation that you're in and bottle it, because you never know when that situation is going to come up again. And it happened like clockwork for JFK. They were confident in themselves because they'd been there before. They'd been in that exact situation and they succeeded. So they said, let's do it again.
And I mean, it was a great win for the Eagles, no doubt, as they make another trip to the state Final Four and a chance to bring home a state championship once again.
They will play Newark Catholic, and as we talked about, this is a matchup of the same 2 teams matched up last year, in this game, and Newark Catholic won in a snowstorm. This is like I think the 3rd straight state semifinal for Newark Catholic Green Wave coming into this night, And it's gonna be a matchup between two powerhouses, really, two powerhouses that have both definitely been to state before. This is the only Ysn matchup that has two perennial powerhouse teams that have been consistently in this round before, and have actually played each other in this round before. Every other matchup that we see either has one or both teams that are fairly new to this situation being there.
Yeah, and you know what? This is a team like we talked about, I think, before the season starts, of like which teams do you think have the best chance of making it to a state championship? I think a lot of people on the YSM banner said JFK. Why?
Mhm.
Because they've been to that level before. They know what it means to play not just a 10-week season of football, what it means to play a 12, 13, 14-week season of football, what kind of mindset you need to have, what kind of focus you need to have at this kind of level. There's a lot more talking, a lot more chirping the higher levels you go in these rounds too. You need to have a certain kind of mindset, a certain kind of confidence, a certain kind of physical workout routine too. You got to have a certain kind of coach, a community to back you. I mean, all these makeups make up state title runs. They really
Mhm.
do. And JFK has been impressive because they've done it before, and they do it year in and year out, and they keep putting that bid in to go right back to the state Final Four.
So just about so JFK's been here before, and they went to the state championship 2 years ago. They got to this game last year, lost to New York Catholic, so they've been here. But then you look at the other teams. This is the first trip for Jefferson, first trip since 2005 for Canfield, and first trip since 2017 for South Range. So JFK is the only team left that has kind of been there, done that, and will not let this you can be extra confident in JFK that they won't let this stage get to them.
Yeah, and I mean JFK wants to kind of redeem themselves too
Mhm.
after 2020. They know what happened and how 2020 ended when they got to that stage. They want to finish the job. They want to put a bow on this season, and it's been quite an impressive season this year.
Speaking of 2020, you'll remember the team they lost to in the state championship game that year was New Bremen. And New Bremen is on the other side of the state bracket, believe it or not. So we could be ending up seeing a rematch of that 2020 state championship game in Canton, Ohio, if the Cards play themselves out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm gonna throw that score up there too, since we're talking about it. As yeah, JFK takes it against Danville 22-21. Do we want to just go up in order of divisions, or any game you want to jump to
Yeah,
next?
let's just go up and go into what Division 5, right? South
Yeah.
Range and Perry. This was the one game that wasn't competitive over the weekend. This was the one that South Range kind of they took control of it early, and they never once let control go.
And we talked about it on Friday too when DJ came on. This is a team that they're just playing different defensively, offensively, all kind of cylinders football wise. They're hitting on all of them. And honestly, they became, like I said, the biggest boulder. Once Kirtland got out of the way, Kirtland and South Range were like two big boulders that always were destined to clash. Once Kirtland got out of the division, dropped down one, South Range became the biggest boulder in this region. And I think you just saw why in every single facet of every single game from round one until regional final. Look at how South Range outperformed opponents on all sides of the football field, special teams, offense, defense. Not really a team that even tested the Raiders once in this regional run. And I mean, you can see it laser focused through all the boys, through Coach Yeagley, through the whole community. They're destined for this state Final Four. This is what they've been wanting the last few years, and I mean, coming up just shy in the big stage of the regional final. They're hungry and they're dangerous right now.
They are so dangerous, and it goes back to that defense. And I know you'll look at that score and you'll say, 21 points is the most they've given up all season, I believe. But a couple of those scores came, when the game was in hand. I think this defense is still locked down. They forced three turnovers in the first three possessions for Perry that kind of just put this game on ice before the second. It seemed like before the second quarter even started. I don't know exactly what time frame it was when they went up 21-0 after three turnovers, but the South Range defense just came in and they took any momentum Perry had over that win over Garaway, and they cut the sails out really quick. They said, we're going to set our tone in this game. You're not going to have any momentum. And after that, like Perry, they were on their heels the whole game, and it felt like South Range just came in from the start and said, this is what we're gonna do to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you hate to say it because Perry's a really good program, but it it felt like Perry wasn't the most deserving team to be in that regional final. Obviously Garaway did not play a good game against Perry in that regional semi, and you just kind of felt that as the game went on. You kind of felt like, okay, well, South Range is just a better team, and it was apparent from the start. It
Coach
really was.
Wrigley and crew have been waiting a couple of years now for that ticket to the state Final Four to be one of the Final Four seats at the table. They have it now, and you know what? Anything happens at this stage. You got the 4 best teams in Division 5 in the state of Ohio going at it. Let's see what we got to. We're hoping for the Northeast region to take it. We're hoping the Raiders bring it home.
This is South Range's 3rd ever trip to the state semifinal. Coach Yeagley was a part of the other 2, and now all 3. Last one was 2017, and then they went back in 2005 as well. But they've never made it to the next round. They've never made it to the state championship game. So the Raiders are looking for their first ever ticket to that state championship in Canton.
The thing is, too, and the interesting factor for a lot of these players on the Raiders, too, they were in middle school, or they were just becoming in high school, too. Right around that time, too. Or no, they were all been in middle school because 2022. So excuse me, they were all in middle school, so they all witnessed this Raiders team in 2017 make that.
They were probably all there too. They probably all went to. Where was that game played at? I think it was Canal Fulton Northwest, where they played. I think it was Eastwood in the state semifinal in 2017.
And you're sitting in the stands too in middle school. You're watching that team. You play middle school football. You're dreaming like, I want to be on this stage with this team wearing these colors. And you now have the opportunity to do so. But you have an opportunity to put the cherry on top right now and walk away with some state title.
And the seniors this year, I should say, were 8th graders that year. So they were looking at that game saying, I'm next up, literally. Like, I am the next year's freshman class. And it took them a minute, but they got back to that past year.
Absolutely. And look at the regular seasons the last few years. I mean, it's been the standard of excellence that we've seen out there in North Lima, and it's what's gonna be
Canfield.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Not North Lima anymore.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Canfield, good correction on that for me, because I'm so used to saying North Lima too.
You're not alone. There have been plenty of papers and plenty of people that just it's always been North Lima, right?
Yeah.
But even after they moved to the new school in Canfield, they spent the next several years at that Memorial Field in North Lima. So that new facility, fairly new. And
I've taken up with it before, and it's a good catch too, because I opened up and said the 2 teams from Canfield won.
Right.
North
right. Good.
But South Range absolutely took it to Perry, and they look like they're destined to bring home some gold. Problem is, you got 3 other teams that are also looking for the same thing right now. So toughest stage of the entire season, but I think if anyone's ready, Coach Yeagley and company are.
Speaking of the other team, South Range is going to play Liberty Center. They got the win over Elmwood in a thriller. It was 49-38. More of a shootout than South Range Perry was, but Liberty Center gets that win, and they will go into the state semifinal next week, and then it will be on the other end of that state bracket. A little bit of a shock because everyone thought Coldwater would be here, but Coldwater not in the state semifinals. It is going to be Ironton against Valley View. So those are the final 4 teams left in Division 5, Valley View and Ironton. Ironton's a team that is kind of like South Range, except they ran into Kirtland in the state championship game every year. So they're trying to get that boulder out of their way, right?
That'll be interesting too. I mean, South Range, for all these teams now, you got 2 games that stand in front of you, 2 more possible games that you could potentially play. You have a chance to walk away with state title gold. You're throwing everything you can at throwing the kitchen sink out there, right? You're trying to win 2 football games and walk away with the top prize in your division.
When I listened to that South Range game, another thing that really got me was how efficient this offense was. Like, you talk about efficiency, and I would bet if I had their numbers and like their breakdown stats in front of me, their yards per snap would probably be extremely high because they don't waste a snap. They don't like. You see a lot of offenses, no matter what the level, it kind of drives me crazy when they waste plays almost. Like, it's like just, hey, we're just gonna run this up the middle and it's no gain, and it's just kind of they call it we're gonna try to establish the fact that we're still able, like, no, like, be efficient with your snaps and always go out there with the play that is probably gonna get yardage. South Range's yards per attempt per play, probably at least 4.55 yards per play.
They definitely are a model of efficiency, and then defense on the other end really puts together short drives for opposing offenses, and it really just makes the time of possession swing in the Raiders' favor almost every single game because of how efficient they are. And then they go and score real quickly, and then by the time they avalanche you, it's already too late and the game's over.
When you start the game with 3 consecutive turnovers forced on defense, with a team the caliber of South Range, it's like it's good night, right? It's lights out, you're done.
Yeah, you can't do it. You can't do it at that stage. But you know what? Great season by Perry, nonetheless. Too. I mean, you never want to take anything away. But the battle of the Pirates went to the Raiders this time.
Remember, Perry got one step closer to their goal this year than they did last year. Last year, they ran into West Branch in the Division 4 regional semifinals, put up a good fight and lost. So they still got that one extra win from last year when you're talking about that program. So they'll continue to be a factor in Division 5, I'm sure. At the beginning of the season, when the divisions came out, everyone said, "Oh, Kirtland is gone." If you remember, I said, "Yeah, but watch out because Perry is coming down from Division 4 into Division 5." And they were a dangerous team. They got to the regional final, and they kind of proved themselves that they were as dangerous as everyone thought they would, because they did upset somebody.
Yeah,
that Garaway team, it was talked about the whole playoffs. Hey, we're heading right towards the South Range Garaway matchup. But Perry said, "Not so fast."
And potentially may potentially not be the last time we see South Range Perry in the playoffs going forward.
Who knows? Like, I don't know what Garaway is losing or how close their window is, or what that'll look like next year. But Perry might be the team that comes back next year and is that mainstay in the regionals. Who knows?
Yep, you never know. But South Range, they complete it too. They complete the quest. They get to the state Final Four, and they have a chance to bring home some gold.
Liberty Center on Friday, and it'll be the day after Thanksgiving. So get your filling, get your turkey in, get your eating on, and then we'll eat on the football field on Friday.
Hopefully, right? I mean, 4 for 4 going to the state title game. We're hoping we bring four back as well in the state Final Four.
All right, let's just go through the divisions. We've started the 7. We're going bottom to top this time instead of top to bottom. It's okay. We can do what we want.
We flip it around.
Jefferson, look at this score. Jefferson continues their incredible. I don't even want to say Cinderella anymore, because I think they've dusted off the whole Cinderella mantra when they beat
Girard, I think, too.
When they beat Kansas South and they got to the regional, like, you get to the regional final, you're not Cinderella anymore. Like, you're in the Elite 8 for a reason. And they came back in this game. Like, West Branch started off and it looked like, okay, West Branch is going to run away with this game, 12-0. But then Jefferson just kept chipping away, and their defense made one stop. They needed that one stop when they were down by a score. And they forced a punt, and Grant Hitchcock ran back the punt for a touchdown.
He makes game-winning plays, man. He absolutely does. And this was a game that I feel like, and I mean, this is not taking anything away from the other teams, but while listening to this game and while seeing the score come up, there was no team I was more excited for than for the Jefferson Falcons, but subsequently there was no team I was more heartbroken for this whole weekend than the West Branch Warriors too, because I know everything that whole team, that program, Drew DeShields and company, Bo Alazaz, all those really great kids in that program too. They wanted to get to this stage. They got back to this stage too and came up just a bit short. the fight's going to continue for that program. They're going to bring big names back too, and they're not going to be a team that's going to go away. They're still going to be prolific. But to talk from Jefferson's side, I mean, how can you not be excited about what this team has done now at this point? And like, I keep going back to our talk preseason with Coach Brandon Hanna and how he just talked about, we're going to go into this league. It's a very tough NE8. We're going to play our best. We're going to hopefully have a better record. We're going to compete, and we're going to show what Jefferson football is all about. Well, they came away with a winning record in the NE8, beat 2 NE8 teams on their path to the regional final, beat a Canton South team that was red hot.
I love it because they beat 8 teams and then they won on any field.
Yeah,
so it's just like, let's go.
Like, just flexing all the way through. And I commented it out too. There really is like this. It's a special group of kids with, like you highlighted, I think, in a conversation we had about how many seniors and special like seniors that they have on this group. And Coach Brandon Hanna, I think we got to start considering him one of the better coaches, I think, in the greater area, man. I mean, you talk about a coach that can just motivate players.
If we had the coach of the year discussion after the end of the whole postseason, he'd get a lot more votes than he did.
Yeah, I think it's tough not to. I mean, I've been seeing it since beginning of the season when we first had a chance to talk to him too. I mean, he has that unique way of just connecting with all the players. And I mean, I've seen it firsthand. I saw it last year too, when the kind of foundational bricks were starting to be set for this program, and just they got a big win over Edgewood. And that was just a huge, the Hoadley Cup, right? They got that win, they got the cup back. And you saw like how much the players embraced Coach Hanna then too, and said like, it feels different now in this program going forward. And you see it. The foundation was laid last year. We talked about how they can be dangerous this year. I don't know if any of us expected this deep of a run though for the Falcons.
They flipped the switch. They somewhere in the postseason they turned it to 10, because this year, they got off to a hot start again, and they lost to Girard, right? So okay, is this the same Jefferson team of last year? They said no, we're not. We're gonna win games. We're gonna bounce back after that loss to Girard. But then they still lost to South Range, lost to Struthers, right? So they couldn't beat the top tier of the NE8, it seemed like. And they end the season with their first program win over Poland. And then it's just like, if they got shot out of a cannon. They escaped Poland in the first playoff game. Remember, it was 14-13. Poland missed a game-winning field goal. Poland hits that. We're not even talking about this, right? So they were that close. And then the next game was close. It was, I think, 26-20 and with the Girard. And then that Canton South game, like something, they executed a perfect game plan. They went, 7 for 7. I had to do the math of how many touchdowns 49 points is. They went 7 for 7 in possessions with touchdowns. The only time they didn't score was when they kneeled the ball down to run up the clock. And then in this game, it was the same exact game plan, and they executed it to perfection again. Just run the ball and control the clock and end every drive with a touchdown. They have scored that's 49-41. That's 90 points in two games in their regional semifinals and regional finals. Scoring is supposed to get harder as you go on to the playoffs. Their first 2 games, they had 14 and 26. Their first 2 playoff games. Then they had 49 and 41. As they went deeper into the playoffs. Something is happening in Jefferson, and it's something special.
It's because they have a Hitchcock at QB, and he's the master of suspense, right? I mean, we've talked
jack of all trades. He ran back a punt return for a touchdown. The last time I've seen a guy do this much for a football team was it was one of the Schulers for Springfield. I don't remember what his first name was, because there's so many of them that went to Springfield. But he punt. I remember because I grew up watching, because it was South Range, Springfield was rivalry. He punted, he quarterbacked, he punt returned, he would run. It was incredible what that kid was doing in Springfield back in the, I think, late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around there. But this kid, Grant Hitchcock, he's been able to do it all. And when I got the stats back, I was like, oh my gosh, he ran a punt return back for a touchdown that gave Jefferson the lead. It's incredible.
With
But
him, I mean, guys like Trent Hodge too. There's a lot of speed on this Jefferson team. That's one thing they haven't been lacking all season is speed, and that speed could kill it even at the highest level of the game.
Falcon fever is real.
Absolutely.
But here's a guy that I think we haven't said his name enough, and he came up really big for Jefferson, and that is I want to get his first name right. This for is Funtash, right? Funtash ran for 152 yards.
That's why Jefferson's offense hasn't been really much of an issue. They've had we talked about early season, they had those early season blunders, but not since the playoffs have really started. They got their gears going with Poland, and then they've been pretty solid since then and sustaining offensive drives. And you talked about it, that first playoff win, it kind of just feels like they were infused with a why not us mentality after that. We can win this game, we can win any game that. And they've just gone out there and put out a great performance weekend.
Sometimes when you escape a game, it gives you this extra boost, right? Like they escaped Poland in a battle, 14-13. And like I said, Poland had the ball, and they kicked it wasn't like an incredibly long, I can't believe this kid's even out there kicking field goal. It was like a 39, 40-yard field goal, and he didn't miss it by much. So it was definitely, it could have gone either way. And if Poland, like I said, if Poland hits that field goal, we're not even having this discussion. They get that game, then they have Gerard, who they've lost to before this season, and it's another battle. It's 26-20. I don't know what happened. The Canton South game, it was like all of a sudden no one can stop this run game.
And you know what? Falcon fever absolutely is real. They're kicking it into another notch. But I think story-wise, you talked about the Cinderella story, maybe one of the most magical runs we've seen in potentially the last decade from a football team. That a team like, at least in the YSN banner too, if we want to talk about magical runs that we've seen, and we've seen a few, I gotta say it's in the top 10.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had a team get to the, like, while YSN was in it. So this is the 5th year that YSN has been doing football. We started back in 2017. We've had someone in the state semifinals at least every year, but I don't think it was Springfield. It might have been Springfield's first time, that first year they did it. The first year they went to state. It might have been their first. But like, they were expected to go far in that tournament because they were just lighting up the world. This Jefferson team, what, the 7th seed? In the region?
6th. Yeah.
6th seed. I'm sorry, they beat the 7 in Canton South to get to the 1.
Yep.
But you'll look at it and it's like, just kind of finding ways to win every game, finding ways to win. They haven't blown out anyone. They haven't dominated anyone. It's just, hey, let's just make game-winning plays.
And they were behind the 8 ball, and West Branch too.
Yeah, I think Canton South is the game where they won by the most.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
I mean, they won by 1 against Poland, 6 against Gerard, win by 4 against West Branch.
West Branch had an early lead too. I was listening in that first quarter. I was like, "Oh, okay." Like West Branch, I was kind of worried. I was like, West Branch might be able to start piling it on at this point.
Here's the key: West Branch went for 2 both times they scored and missed both of them. I don't know how. Like, you look at that, that's 4 points right there.
Yeah,
it could have been 41-41.
You're absolutely right. There's a 4-point swing, and that's where we talk about too. You can't put too much weight on like one play in a football game. It's a multitude of plays that get you where you are in a game. Jefferson's just been making the right plays. They've been executing well. Coach Brandon Hanna and company have been making the right play calls. I mean, something special is happening out there in Jefferson area for sure.
Despite giving up 2 touchdowns, I think, and this is just, I think stopping a team twice on 2-point conversions gives your like a little bit of a win, like just that little tiny win. Yes, we gave up a touchdown. Yes, we're down 12-0. But look, we stopped them from going for 2 twice, and gives them that little bit of a boost, right?
An ultimate goal line stand twice. That's what it ends up being.
So when you do that, yes, you're down 12-0, but you have those little victories that send you along the way. And those little victories kept piling up for Jefferson until finally they get that one defensive stop they need, force a punt. And like I said, Grant Hitchcock ran it back 75 yards for a touchdown to put Jefferson ahead. And it was back and forth from the game after that because West Branch didn't go away.
No. I mean, that's the thing too. You have to beat some of the best to get to the stage, and that's exactly what Jefferson did. Magical run continues for the Falcons as they get to this final four seats at the table and a chance to bring home some state title gold. And I mean, I think a lot of people might be surprised. I don't know what company and out there is saying too with the Falcon faithful and the Falcon fever that's been
And your
rushing
point
over the
here,
Falcon
we
fans.
lost in this whole thing is Jefferson turned the ball over twice
Yeah.
and overcame that.
You talk about it. This is everyone out there in Jefferson knew this was going to be a great team this year, and they've believed from the onset. And that community has been showing up and
Let's
showing
go
out
back to
every
this one
single
too.
week.
The freight train.
I love it. No
We
little
get the little engine that could.
the
It's a
freight
freight
train
train.
that
Falcon
did.
freight train.
They're looking for it, man. They're at the final four at this point. And to all of our teams, before we get into our final recap of the football team, to all the teams that made it to the final four, so much to be proud of already at this
Yes,
point.
we
I know
always say this.
athletes, I know they're hungry. They're going to want to finish the job. I hope they do finish the job. I hope we're talking 4 state title games under the YSN banner.
Oh,
But there's a lot to be proud of for these four seasons so far too. And we talked about West Branch seasons. I preluded with that. Nothing to be disappointed about in that season as well. But for these 4 teams that make it, you're one of the final 4 teams in your division. I mean, there's not many teams left standing in the state of Ohio. You are the best team in your region, in the Northeast region for this year. And for that, I mean, you can't hang your heads if you drop one at this game. I know we don't think that. We're not gonna think that, but it is the world of sports. It is a possibility. But these are great seasons nonetheless for all 4 of these teams, and it's been nothing but a pleasure covering all 4 of these teams throughout the course of this season.
before we move on, we have to give an homage to Judas Shields and West Branch and
MVP.
The great season they've had and the ride that they were able to take us on. This loss does not diminish that. You
No
look
doubt.
at the stats for this game. Judas Shields had a show. The 2 losses that West Branch has had this season, this one, and then back in week 1 against Canfield, you can't say it was because Judas Shields did not play well. 10 for 21 on the night through the air with 178 yards passing. He ran for 42, so he gained over 200 total yards in the offense. Boston Molenix, though, he was the workhorse for West Branch. 20 carries, 250 yards on the ground. He ran all up and down the field for the Warriors, and just what a great night for him. I think he's a sophomore, if I'm not mistaken, so he'll be back in that backfield for a couple more years.
We're excited for it, definitely. And they're gonna, like I said, they're gonna be a problem for years to come. They're not gonna go away. The Warriors will definitely be around in these playoff
For
scenarios.
people saying, well, what are you going to do without Judas Shields? Remember, last year, it was what are they going to do, because they lost the guy that was in front of Judas Shields for a couple years and taught him everything he knows. And Mr. Brock, right? So, don't do it. Don't sleep on the Warriors just because they're losing Judas Shields, because there might be that person waiting in the wings. Like Drew said, hey, I'd been a quarterback all through middle school, and I just had to sit behind a guy that was special for a couple of years, right? So maybe there's that someone in West Branch. And I know Bo Aldzas came in that one game that Judas Shields got hurt and had to sit out for the rest of the game and did pretty okay. So maybe Bo Aldzas is the guy that comes back next year.
You never know too out there in Beloit, but I know that they always have some premier athletes, and they definitely don't go away. So we'll be looking for the Warriors next year once it rolls around as well.
Congratulations to West Branch on a great season, and let's get to Canfield, and they get the monkey off their back. This has been the headline of the season all throughout the football season. So many programs have been able to, whether it be the regular season or playoffs, take a team that they've been struggling with for the last several years and kind of wash away that memory. Canfield is the latest to the list. They get started 14-7. Old school football, low scoring affair. And it was one that Brock Lowry came up and made just enough plays. Like, it wasn't lighting the world on fire. Neither offense was. But when the play had to be made, here comes Mr. Lowry for the play to be made. And then Danny Inglis also, big touchdown to give Canfield the lead. If I remember right, it was like a little swing pass that wasn't supposed to be a huge 75-yard touchdown. But yak, man, that kid can yak all day.
And
Yards after catch, by the way, if you don't know.
Listening to this game too, and Mike and Richie, and I mean, all the crews did a phenomenal job on their calls throughout the week. And I put it out there too. I want to give the props to all of them. They did a great job.
Can we pause real quick? It is hard going from video all season to then having to transition into an audio broadcast. For people that are outside the world of broadcasting, audio and video are you have to handle it two completely different ways. You have to paint the picture a lot more when it's an audio only broadcast. So for all these crews, DJ, Richie on Friday, 440 and Goal guys, and Mike on Saturday, along with Dom O'Brien with JFK, they all had to transition themselves and kind of change a little bit and be an audio only broadcaster. Not exactly the easiest thing in the world to do. And they all did phenomenal jobs.
Absolutely. And I mean, this was a game too, listening to Richie and Mr. Mike Ackelson call this game. This was a game of I was on my toes the whole second half, because it was like Canfield would get the ball, Chardon get the ball, and they would put together these drives, but the defenses were coming through, and it was like, which defense is going to blink? And there was a point where Chardon got the ball back, and I was thinking,
turnover, right?
Yeah, I believe so. And I was thinking, oh man, this is it. I mean, they've been to this level before. This is the point where it feels like time's running out. This is where the Hilltoppers are going to put together a drive. And they started getting a couple first downs, and Canfield just put their foot down. And it felt like they were utilizing all the frustration of the past few years, all the seniors that are graduated that couldn't be there, all the strength was summoned from all of them too. And they pushed the Hilltoppers back, and they said, no, not this year. And Canfield was able to get the ball back. And like you talked about, magical plays happen at this stage too. They were able to get that one big play to break off, and they put their backs on that defense again, and that defense for sure came through, as it has all season long for the Cardinals, in a big way. And now Canfield, like you said, for the first time since 2005, going back to the state championship game.
Yeah, it was a 56-yard touchdown run. Obviously there's I think it was a little sweep on the. I know he ran down the sideline, so that's why I couldn't really remember if it was a little pass to the flat, or if it was a sweep play. But Danny English with a run, 56-yard run for a touchdown. Man, that's a big play. In a game that there weren't a lot of big plays, there weren't a lot of 20+ yard plays. He comes out with one in the biggest time in the fourth quarter. And then obviously they had to make it one more stop, and Chardon had the ball. And it was Don Marzano on 4th and 1 that got Canfield the ball back and stopped Chardon on 4th and 1 to silence that drive and kind of ice the game. So big plays on offense for sure by English, but this defense for Canfield made its presence known like it did last week, really. I mean, I know Ursuline scored 25, but you'll watch that game and you realize Canfield's defense is really giving Ursuline a lot of problems. They gave Chardon problems. I was surprised because all season until the regional semifinals, Chardon's offense had been scoring a lot of points. I don't know. I mean, obviously you run into good defenses down the stretch, but you look at the semifinals, they didn't score one offensive touchdown. Their touchdown came in that game with a punt return for a touchdown. So they won 10-7. The one offensive score was a field goal. And then they have one offensive touchdown against Canfield, and it was a short field turnover touchdown. So Chardon's offense, they ran into two really good defenses, and they kind of got exposed a little bit.
Absolutely. And you know what? Canfield's been playing a phenomenal brand of defense all season long. They get a trip to the state Final Four now. And honestly, what Canfield has been doing all season long is, like we said, they find ways to win. They do enough on offense, but that defense has been able to hold teams down. And when it can't hold them down enough, the offense comes through like it did against Ursuline. But the thing is, Ursuline might have been the most prolific offensive team in the region. That
they were much more versatile than Chardon was.
So Canfield, I think, did a great job against Ursuline and just saying, okay, we're not going to be able to stop them offensively. Let's take away one aspect of their game and make things a lot harder. And
took away Christian Lynch. That's what they did.
They took him away, and they were like, all right, you're not going to get those yards on us. You're going to have to do it this way. And they went into a shootout. Brock Lowry won the shootout, and this is this is where Canfield got to Chardon, and it was the same thing where Chardon was a little bit more one-dimensional offensively, and Canfield, I felt like with the weather in Ravenna too. I mean, it looked like a tundra, by the way. Like it was snowing all day. It was.
It's usually like the nice, like the blue in my room blue. It looked like powder blue.
It
was
looked
mixed
like
with white.
No, it looked like we were playing in the Arctic. Like it looked like you're playing in the Arctic with it.
Did you see the picture I sent from like Region 26?
It's crazy.
It was you couldn't see a thing. I don't remember where that game was. Wherever the Region 26 final was, you could not see a thing. It was just total whiteout.
It reminded me of like that picture that's been swirling around on social media. What was it, like the game LSU played where like in a 5-minute span it was like green field and then like covered in snow?
No, that was this week. It was one of the MAC games, right? It was
might have
Western Michigan.
It might have been.
Yeah. Western Michigan against it was there was Central Michigan. It was Central Michigan versus Western Michigan, and it just turned into a snowstorm like that.
Out of nowhere. And it was similar kind of conditions with this game, but it felt like the perfect storm for the Cardinals to get this Chardon monkey off their back, because Chardon primarily a run team. With the weather conditions, you knew it was going to be hard for the Hilltoppers to sneak in pass plays. So Canfield was like, all right, we're just going to throw in run defense, and we're going to make it as hard as you can. They put together one offensive drive, and where they were able to break the end zone, and nothing else after that.
And you look at it, and every championship caliber team that gets this far, you're going to get some breaks along the way, and Chardon dropped a touchdown pass that would have tied the game. Like it was right there, and it fell out of his hands. You're gonna get breaks. Teams always, it's not a slight to say that like Canfield got a ball bounced their way, because you look at every team that's won a championship and you look at their season. Like I don't think there's any team at any level that's won something relevant that has been like, we had nothing go our way this year. Like you're gonna have some stuff go your way, and that's one of the things that Canfield, the ball just bounced their way a little bit in that particular play, and that there were other plays too that, either the call went the Canfield Cardinals' way. It was just one of those games where it felt like almost destiny that Canfield was gonna win this game.
And you know what? It was one of those cases where Canfield ran into this boulder every single season, and it stopped them short of their goal. They had to face the boulder head on, and they went right through it. And I mean, they basically didn't let Chardon score after that initial score. And like you said, there's some things that go your way, but that's football, right? That's football. I mean, you see how a lot of neat things need to go right for a perfect postseason run. We saw Springfield in that one season, 2020, to get
play.
Yeah, to get
I mean,
title game. Like sometimes things just need to go your way. You throw everything, the kitchen sink on the table, right? And you just hope. You hope for the best. And my guys against your guys.
Like I said, I have never seen a championship where you can't go through at least one point in the season and say, wow, that ball really bounced that way for that team.
Well, and the thing is, you got to ask the question too. If it's not snowing, if it's not those conditions, does he catch that ball? I don't know. That's all.
But it was. It
did. I mean, that's all in the past. You can't live in what if scenarios. We just know that the Canfield Cardinals are back in the state Final Four for the first time since 2005.
Coach's son too. That's gonna be a long bus ride home. Long bus ride home, my boy.
But no, another great season by Chardon. Nothing to hang their hats. And I mean, you win a couple state title games.
Right. The two-time state champions.
This is a Chardon team that is not going anywhere. They're going to be right in the thick of it every single year. Division III, Region 9. Expect the Hilltoppers team to have something to say next year, because I'm sure they will.
Yeah, and maybe they'll come back and it'll be another rematch, and they'll be looking at Canfield the same way that Canfield was looking at Chardon.
There's a little bit more respect now. Once you can get that win over a team now it's a rivalry, right? It's not as much of a rivalry when Chardon's it's an underdog kind of thing still, right? When Chardon's beaten Canfield.
Especially the way they had beaten them. Like, these games weren't competitive.
Yeah, couldn't get over the hump. Like, for Canfield to beat Chardon, now it's a rivalry. You get some respect on the other side now.
You can argue it's a rivalry if the games are competitive and one team just happens to win all the time. But like the last two games for Chardon and Canfield at this spot before this one weren't close. It was
No.
Chardon by a lot.
So Canfield put it all together. Group of 28 seniors, I believe, is what Richie was highlighting too.
Mhm.
It's the special group, and it's a year for the Cardinals. They felt like, if there's any year to do it, this is the year to do it.
They will play Holy Name in the state semifinal of Division III.
Should be a fun one too as we get ready for all four of these state final four games too, and we're hoping all four teams make it to the final two seats at the table. Do we want to go on a break before girls basketball?
Yeah, we're gonna take a break after I go through all the locations of next week's game. They were already decided before, so this was one of the ones where you didn't have to wait until Sunday. So we'll just start with the first final that came in, which is Friday. South Range versus Liberty Center will be at Clyde High School. That'll be Friday night. And then also on Friday night, Canfield versus Holy Name will be in Euclid Community Stadium. So that's where those two will play for the trip to the state final. And then we will go down to Saturday's game. And it was obviously Newark Catholic, and they will play JFK. We're waiting for the spot here. Newark wins. They'll play in Orville. JFK versus Newark in Orville on Saturday. And then Glenville versus Jefferson will be at Canal Fulton Northwest Saturday as well. So those will be the matchups and the locations for this week's Final Four matchups. Obviously, we'll have in-depth coverage of all those games throughout the week. Legends on versus South Range tomorrow night. Another chance to talk with Dan Yeagley and more of those players from South Range. 441 Gold Guys should have a renewal of their Jefferson show. Last week we had to cancel because of inclement weather in Ashtabula County, where the whole county was shut down because of weather on Thursday. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. We can get back to talking with Coach Hannah and the 441 Gold Guys because they do a great job with their show down there. We'll catch up with JFK again, and of course, Richie will have Canfield as well. So we're going to have in-depth coverage of all those teams and those Final Four matchups throughout the week. We just recap their wins today, and we will take a break, and we'll tell you what happened on the girls' basketball court to kick off, tip off the season on Saturday. After this quick break on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens.
Live here outside the Mahoney County.
On air, online,
Wednesday afternoon weather update.
Very dangerous.
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
As fine as the eye can see, the finest hardwoods from the finest trees. Made for your home and within your means, Baird Brothers will help fulfill your dreams. Let life and light come shining through in quiet morns. And heavy traffic, too. Find your easy-to-afford fine hardwood floors and doors and more at BairdBrothers.com.
Every customer has a story, and at Greenwood Chevrolet, we are committed to making sure it ends with you in the right vehicle. I get to be part of somebody's adventure, whether it's buying a car for the first time, helping them get approved, or finding the perfect car for their budget. I'm proud that people trust me with their finances. They trust me to take care of them, and they trust me with their story. I'm Tracy, and I'm ready to go the extra mile for you, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austin. We're just about wrapping up Monday, but before we do, want to get you the scores and recaps of the girls basketball opening weekend. And the first one that we saw, kind of surprising, West Branch does fall in their season opener to Canton South 59 to 40. I'm sorry, 52 to 49. Mix that up a little bit. This is a game that West Branch fell behind early and just couldn't quite get all the way back. Canton South was just good enough to keep West Branch at bay. West Branch had the ball with a chance to tie, missed the last shot. They put Canton South at the free throw line down 50 to 49. Props to Canton South. They hit 2 free throws, made West Branch have to have a 3 the last possession. It was kind of it was a low percentage 3, and it didn't fall. So Canton South upsets old conference rival West Branch 52 to 49 to open the season. West Branch doesn't get any easier. They'll go to Canfield tomorrow night.
Little bump in the road for the Warriors. I'm sure they'll be fine.
Look, yeah, like Coach DeShields will definitely. If this means that they're going to be better in February, who cares? Okay, it's one loss in the start of the season, but it is a little bit of a chink in the armor. You know, they have to figure some stuff out offensively. Without, I think, losing Lippiett, is a little bit of a dynamic offensive threat that they don't have anymore. They have to figure out who's going to be that person for them, because obviously Sophie Gregory is still going to do her thing, and she was great. She brought them back. Who's going to be that next scorer that gives them a little bit more versatility on offense? Is it something that they're going to have to watch out for?
Yeah, no doubt.
Lakeview and East tie. Last year, this went into overtime, and when it started, I said, this is not going to overtime again. Lakeview just looks like the better team. But by God, that East Bears team, they scrap like nobody's business. And what I love about them is they don't really have an offense, like an offensive set. They just kind of get the ball and they just use athleticism to just run, right? They don't really run an offense. They might have like 5 offensive plays total that they actually run a set for. Everything else is just kind of old, I don't want to say old school, but kind of like street basketball where they're just finding stuff. They're just finding ways to get in, finding ways to get open. Their point guard is amazing. If you get the ball in her hands, she can make things happen. But they just rely on their athleticism and scrappiness to get them back in the games. They did it to Mooney last year. They came all the way back after being down like 15 at halftime and pushed into overtime and won overtime over Mooney. This year they almost do it to Lakeview, but the Bulldogs were able to bounce back and win in overtime, 50 to 45 after giving up a really big, I think it was 31 to 18 at halftime. So East comes back, Lakeview gets the win.
Should be interesting to see how both teams progress moving forward after this game.
Lowville has no trouble at all with Camel. We want to send our thoughts to Maddie Sugar. She got hurt early in this game. We hope she can be back for Camel because she is a really good basketball player. 57 to 8, Lowville gets the win over Camel to open their season. The first score to come in, it started a little bit early. It was 59-39. Warren JFK gets the win over Matthews. We will go to Salem, who got the big win over Howland, 52-32. Same old Salem. Really good defense, and use that defense to create good offense.
Howland's going to be trying to figure out ways to win now, losing a little bit. Alyssa Pompilia was obviously the big loss from a year ago. I mean, was also the MVP in YOSN Network, too. So
I will say that Howland got shots. Like, their offense was able to get some open looks. It was a tough shooting night for Alyssa Masucci and company.
Coach Pound,
they're going to be a good team. Their offense did its job. They executed the sets, got some open looks. You just got to knock them down, right?
Yeah, they'll be fine over there in Howland. It's a little bump in the road. Like I said, early season, they'll figure it out.
On Saturday, United fell to Uniontown Lake, but that's a really big Uniontown Lake team.
Uniontown Lake's great.
Props to United to even doing that, like saying, "Hey, we're going to go up and play Uniontown Lake."
They said,
this was in West Branch.
We're not going to be surprised by anyone once that tournament starts.
58-24, Lake gets that win. Then we go into the rest of Saturday where we saw Mooney get the win over Columbiana, 45-26, a game where they trailed at halftime, 14-13. Third quarter was a blowout quarter for Mooney, and they end up torching Columbiana, 45-26. We also have some other scores that came in. Let me go in. Garfield got the win over Bristol. Mandy Cardinal looked awesome. She had a play where she got a rebound at the baseline and just weaved through that whole defense coast to coast like it was nothing.
I said too, freshman year, man, she's gonna be a problem there. She was a problem in volleyball. She brings some height there for Coach Gilbert.
By the way, Final score there was 64-36 Garfield. Last score of the weekend came from Struthers. They fell at West Branch to Walsh Jesuit 61-45. Struthers hoping to be a wild card in that 88 that has featured two teams at the top
It's a
since its
solid Walsh
conception.
team, too. It's a solid Walsh team that I think is going to be making some appearances with a few more of our YSN teams.
That's a D1 Walsh, by the way.
Yeah, and Struthers gave them all they can handle. That's a good Wildcat team this year. They're going to be solid.
Girls basketball tonight. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games on the network. We will start with Newton Falls at Warren JFK. Dom O'Brien will be at the call. 5:30 tip-off for that one. East Technical will go to Orange. That'll be a 6 o'clock tip-off. The school will have that one covered.
Again. We've heard that name before.
East Tech.
Anthony loves any team that has tech in the name.
By the way, it is hate week, so to hell with Georgia. Struthers at Youngstown East will be at a 5:30 tip-off. That one will be at Noah Doty with the call. Badger goes to Hubbard at 7 o'clock for a tip-off. David Williams will have the call for both of those teams' openers. Beaver Local travels to Crestview. Larry Scragg will have the call for you there. 7 o'clock tip-off. Kenny at Campbell Memorial. Noah Ricks will have the call there as Campbell tries to bounce back from their loss to Lowville. Ty, you have Fitch hosting Lakeside. This is a YSN matchup now. Welcome to the family, Lakeside. Austintown Fitch hosting Lakeside, 7 o'clock, their season opener for the Falcons and the Dragons. Maplewood will be at Heartland Christian. Merck Franken will have the call there, 7 o'clock tip. Matthews at Western Reserve. I will be in Berlin Center for that one. And then last but not least, Niles will be at LeBray. Matt Mayer and Jordan will have the call for you there. Some games that are on the net that are happening, but not on the network. We have Alliance at Waterloo, Pymatuning Valley at Jefferson, and Wellsville at Edison. If you are holding a schedule that says South Range is traveling to Springfield tonight, that game has been moved to January 21st. So that game not happening tonight. And the Raiders will open the season tomorrow at Edgewood.
It's one of those cases you'll see that happen too, depending on how football teams are doing with boys too. Expect to see a few of schedules be a little bit pushed too in teams as far as rescheduling goes. But
we already know that the Salem at Fitch game that was originally scheduled for Wednesday on the boys' side has been pushed back.
Yeah, that's going to be pushed to sometime, I believe, in February now is when they pushed it.
So teams are either getting just off of their season or trying to let some kids get healthy off of a tough season.
We'll obviously keep you guys updated here on the site too, but also, I mean, a lot of these schools do a great job with their social medias as well, so make sure you give them a follow as well.
That'll do it for today's episode. Tomorrow, we're going to be back to our everyday recaps. We'll recap the action from tonight. We'll also have some more basketball previews to play for you guys as we continue to get ready for the start of some more basketball seasons on the network. So we'll be back tomorrow from 1 to 2 on Running Point. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Brought to you